My name is Joseph Wunderlich. I'm a college professor, and this is a talk on residential architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright. I've created this from excerpts of my lecture series on Frank Lloyd Wright, as well as my lecture series on architecture theory, parts of a video lecture that I did in and around Chicago with 31 Frank Lloyd Wright sites, and Frank Lloyd Wright related works and experiences of his that I traveled and seen in Chicago, Japan, Italy, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, and also a little bit about a project of mine. Frank Lloyd Wright was born right after the Civil War in the mid 1800s in the United States in Madison, Wisconsin. He grew up in farmland. His father was a preacher, a lawyer, and a professional musician. His mother homeschooled him using Froebel methods. Froebel invented kindergarten and was influenced by Japanese culture. The mother's family was also very much Unitarians, which has some aspects of seeing God and everything similar to Shinto religion in Japan. Louis Sullivan was his mentor, and he sought work with him in Chicago for his new ideas, and as well as he was the most famous architect at that time in Chicago, father of skyscrapers. Both of them were looking for an entirely new kind of American architecture. Neither one of them liked the new classicism like they saw, for example, in the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893. Frank Lloyd Wright did see this Japanese pavilion that was there, and so he's getting some early influences there. This is the pavilion in Japan. The floor plan is one thing that he was influenced by. You can see the Japanese architecture, and then he rose to be very quickly in charge of 49 other young draftsmen, actually, in the firm. Borrowed money from Louis Sullivan. Frank Lloyd Wright was in charge of all residential architecture in this mainly commercial firm. He built his house. You could see the strong geometries there, arguably influenced by the Froebel blocks, or not arguably, he would say that that was an influence throughout his life. This is the entry to that house. Hearth, typically in the middle of the home. Center fireplaces in the center of the home. Banding of windows. Orchestrating light, both natural and artificial light, in creative ways. Master bedroom. Sewing room. Where the children would be. Eventually 6 children. 3 on each side, 3 boys, 3 girls. This was originally his workspace. Then later on, he built an addition, a studio, and as he expanded, there'd be employees in there. It's right on Chicago Avenue. Secretary space for the employees, 6 of them, 6 draftsmen, architects, apprentice architects. This is in the playroom for the children. There's a piano built into the wall. It's cantilevers out over a stairwell, so the music flows throughout the house. Blocks. This is the playroom, the barrel vault, and the benches and toys stored underneath. The children would put on plays in the front here, and there's a balcony in the back for people to watch. He built some bootleg houses right down the street, a couple houses down from his house on Chicago Avenue. It was clear to everybody that these were his style houses, and he did that in breach of his contract with Louis Sullivan. in the firm, so he was laid off because of that, but he still looked up to his mentor even after that. This is the first project on his own practice, and you can see his characteristic banding of windows, cantilevering. Banding of windows was certainly a signature of his. This is something I talk about in architecture theory in a number of ways, and he was definitely influenced by that. This is something I did in my own home. My children, just sitting and looking out the view without any screens, just the view, prairie style. He was still doing other styles for clients at that time, and some with clear Japanese influence, like this one. And then more on developing his prairie style, some of the broad central chimney, broad low hip roof, long overhanging cantilevers. So even though this is not typically a prairie style, some of the beginning concepts of that. And then the pinwheel planes, also characterized in prairie style, would be Japanese, clear Japanese influence on this one. And on this one also over here. Japanese influence examples, as well as the organic growth of trees he would reference to. This is a special thing in Japan. I was a keynote speaker here at the conference, and we spent 2 weeks in Kyoto after that, as well as Narita and through Tokyo to Osaka, where the conference was. So the form and function lies at the root of all practice in a symbiotic way, not one following the other. Lessons from nature, harmony. Again, the pinwheel planes, the cruciform. And then these three designs are often referenced as the beginning of his prairie style, even though he mentioned the first major commission as being different scholars, different publications, as well as in the details of the board and batten, horizontal board and batten. That's normally a vertical thing to do, as well as Roman brick, a thin Roman brick that he would use, and have a reveal where some of the courses are protruding to emphasize the horizontal. And Japanese influence. So these 1905 photos were released recent times from the Taliesin in Wisconsin, and I believe at Columbia University Archives now. And before they were released, I had visited Japan and took photos on correlating, showing the difference from 100 years. What I observed and what he has observed. See his pictures and my pictures, and what he is seeing, experiencing in Japan in 1905. Bell to ring people to come to prayer. Religious icons. Group harmony of people. Wa in Japanese. W-A is group harmony. Natural water collection. People, relationships, family. Japanese culture. This was girls walking to a Japanese Kyoto college, and we stayed 2 weeks in Kyoto, and they would walk across these bridges. That's a story, a funny story here for another time. Here's Frank Lloyd Wright walking. Japanese children, me and my son. Japanese gardens huge Japanese gardens all over Japan. Tranquil places, meditative places. And Franklin Wright would say the West could not have easily seen an indigenous organic architecture. Civilizations based on cultural inspiration, chiefly Buddhism, could. My work is in that deeper philosophical sense. Nod to my students here. For almost 2 decades, I taught judo, traditional judo, and a little bit of a class in Japan too. So 1 year after he comes back, this is Roby House in the south side of Chicago, University of Chicago campus now. And you can see some inspiration there. Prairie style house. Some Japanese influence here also. Another. Also, the arts and crafts movement, originally in England and then in the United States during Frank Lloyd Wright's rise to fame, inspired him and his style. Also, the secessionist movement in Austria, mostly he's seemingly getting his graphic design style from that. So he's having 6 children during this time. He's now 41 years old in 1908. He then designs this house here. I mentioned this because of COVID that we've had to deal with. Tuberculosis was a big thing at that time in 1909, and this family asked for him to design a house with ventilation, extra ventilation for that. He runs off with an intellectual woman, wife of one of his clients. It's not good for his career, and he's ostracized and goes to Italy, lives in Fiesole, Italy. So this is Fiesole, Italy. This is where he lived. Right here, they even have a plaque on the wall. Here, it has his age a little incorrect. That's a whole other story. And this is a view that he's seeing there as well as looking down. Fiesole is right outside of Florence, and this is where I stayed right near Fiesole. This is Florence, Duomo. So he experienced that as well. Statue of David's there. Museum, University of Venice. And so, how did Frank Lloyd Wright get influenced in Italy? Well, there's not much spoken of it, but he's looking at things like this, these villas. He did design this, but it wasn't implemented. And then he comes back and he designs Taliesin. He's kind of hurting for funds. His mother gives him the land, and then he builds this. And then you take a look at this and decide if there's influence from being in Italy. Immediately after being in Italy, he comes back and designs Taliesin. Then comes back from Italy and notices, or one of his first designs is noticeably operable windows with a lot more ventilation. And in Italy, even to this day, air conditioning is not as prevalent, even in the hotter places. His mistress is murdered, starts doing things that resemble Mayan architecture, burial ritual. So then goes to Japan, arguably to find himself. Does some great architecture. Imperial Hotel is really noteworthy, immersing himself in Japanese culture 3 years over a 5 year span. He studied that in school. Also, speak a little bit about the comparison of Buddhism and Shintoism and Unitarianism that he grew up with, and then the later religions and how that culture. Some of his designs in Japan, another design in Japan. These are homes, all homes in Japan. He opens a firm with his son in Los Angeles, still getting over the death of his mistress, doing these textile tomb like houses. Not very popular, but noteworthy. This was a movie. doing some novel textile unit construction blocks, blocks, and also the modularity of the Ken system in Japanese design based on unit tatami, both in floor plans, plan view and in elevations. Then he meets Olga. Olga is going to have a real significance in his life. She's 30 years younger than him. He's 61, kind of not going anywhere. She comes from a pretty prestigious background with her parents and the influences she had. So she's much more mature than a 30-year-old. In fact, influences him a great deal and even gets him to open up a fellowship. So that's where she convinces him to open up a school at Taliesin. And she also has these utopian ideas from some philosophy that she's learned through her experience growing up in Europe. Students just learn by watching him, essentially. He has some more egalitarian kind of social ideals of a broad acre city, full city design, never got implemented. And then Falling Water is during this time too. So one of the major commissions of his life. This is a field trip with colleagues and a professor. She works at Falling Water. This is a student of mine, and then Falling Water, Falling Water, different professors on this field trip, different professors on the field trip. Taliesin West, that. People still live in this. Asian influence in the artwork, open spaces. Lots of open spaces. Where he would sleep on one side. He would tell the students, "Don't bother me if I'm sleeping on one side. The other side, you wake up." Olga sleeps cot nearby, and a nice room, connected, indoor, outdoor. This is their bathroom space, open to the outdoors. Quite a bit. Open outdoor Taliesin. Midway garden kind of sculpture there. Organic things. Surrounding video. They showed me around because I'm teaching architecture. Got a little bit more than the toilet area. They gave me extra tour where the students present, build their own houses. And Usonian houses um, were low cost houses. They could be relatively low cost houses for wealthy people. This is now an 85 years old in Arizona. Taking pictures there. This is also back in Pennsylvania. One of the Usonian houses got built there. Faculty and my colleagues. Then he's 91 years old now. Then just a summary of his organic architecture, conforming to site, pinwheel planes to prairie style, folded planes, geometries, human scale, floor planes, destroying the box, yin and yang, kind of complementary form and function, complementary, unified whole, bringing nature out, structural art, warm colors, tones, fixtures built in. Architecture is music, analogous to music, and his mentors and the Japanese influence.